the V Foundation. Every year we have the Fight Like Hell Fight Night. We have all been affected by cancer. Chael, Dom, you do a lot for. We'll get into that. But Chael, like, talk to me about your experiences in terms of dealing with cancer, which is such a horrible disease.
Yeah, my gosh, and they say it runs in the family. Like I feel like should I live long enough that I've gotten that my future. In my own future, I lost my father to cancer, but I also lost my grandfather and my grandma on the other side. And can I tell you guys something though? Can I name drop? When I was at ESPN, I got to meet somebody, and it was Stu. Oh, he came up to me. Yeah, I was past him in a hallway. And it was just before, I mean, it was like 2 months before his announcement came out. When his announcement came out, it kind of unraveled pretty fast, or at least it felt like it did. And that was the same thing that my dad went through. Everything was great. Go to the doctor, you get this announcement, and you're planning your goodbyes. And I just share that with you because he was such a nice guy to me. I was brand new. He didn't need to do that. He came out of his way, and it was because he was a fight fan. He largely supported the UFC. And believe it or not, at ESPN at one time, that was a very rare thing.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, we've all dealt with it, Dom. Your personal experiences have been what with this disease?
Well, cancer is an ugly thing. And I think if you're trying to look at how it makes us all human, because we're all connected by it, whether we want to admit it or not, almost every single human on earth has somebody that's been touched by cancer for many different reasons. So that brings us all in the same boat. And like you were just talking about Stu, I mean, his speech was epic.
That was the best.
It was literally like, if you've never had cancer, you are affected by his speech.
When you die, that does not mean that you lose to cancer. You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and in the manner in which you live.
So when I heard his speech, it made me realize whether you have cancer or not, we are all connected. We all need to come together because it's something that everybody's hurt by. And the only way to get through it is to work together, really.
You know, for me, it was the biggest and the most challenging instance for me was my dad. Dude, my dad he was the best. He taught me everything. Like, I gotta be honest, like, growing up where I grew up, there are a lot of bad influences. My father was always able to keep me centered. So every time I won a world title, or made an Olympic team, or anything I did, the first thing I wanted to do was run to that man, right? And he was so strong. And then I remember he came to New York when I fought Derek Lewis, and he was moving a little slower. I didn't quite understand what was going on. And then fast forward to March, we find out he had colon cancer.
Oh, wow.
And he said to me, they gave me a 10-year date. Because I can't go in 10 years. I got to take care of mama. So he said, yeah, I take care of your mama. And then I remember right around June, they found out that he had actual cancer of the liver. And then it was over. Like, it just overtook him.
It takes you fast when it hits you. It took over my stepdad when I was in high school. He got a grapefruit-sized tumor on his hip, on his bone, and he battled it. They went and he beat cancer. It's now dormant. My grandma currently is battling cancer as we speak. So she's 82. She says, I don't want to do anything. Let the Lord take me. I'm tired. That's what she says. But
no chemo.
She didn't want to do it. She just said, you know, I'm just going to grind it out. She's a gangster, though. My grandma's crazy.
I remember when we went.
Thoughts are with her, sir.
I remember when we went to, I was going to fight Stipe Miocic, and I was, you know, when you feel helpless, and we are lucky and able to provide them with the best. So I told my dad, I said, we're going to send you to Houston. It's a great hospital. And he went with so much hope. And they told him it was done. I left to go to Anaheim to fight. But Dad just wasn't there. And then a week after, he was gone. And I remember Stipe Miocic getting the news that his dad had went into remission on the same night that my father was on his deathbed. But it's all connected.
That's what I was just saying, DC. We're all connected. That's my exact point. And I also learned this when I do the work with Chipsa Medical Center, who's also a sponsor. CPI Medical Center is also a sponsor of the UFC, but they also cure cancer there. And you have to leave the country, because otherwise, if you try to do it here in the United States, a lot of times they'll tell you, sell your things, it's over. A lot of times you got to go for a last case scenario. People will sell every belonging they have. They'll go to Chipsa Medical Center, and they'll give them everything and give it one last try. These are the things that brings everybody together. I'll go and I'll meet these cancer victims at this hospital occasionally, and I'll do talks because it brings me back to the reality of life, and I'm gracious to have my life. And when you're talking to a room full of cancer, victims and patients, they're not victims. They're living life, they're present, they're awake. I've learned so much from talking to these cancer, people, because they're just looking at life from such a different angle.
And it's just hard, right? Because you almost feel helpless a little bit. And I remember when, so for me, growing, and probably most of us, right? Chael, you and I for sure were older than Dom, but growing up, broadcasters and sports analysts were pretty cut and dry. They were straight at the camera. They told you what happened in the game between the Braves and the Giants. And then Stuart Scott became a broadcaster. Yes. And he spoke about the other side of the pillow being cool, because that's the truth. You don't even think about that. You don't think about how, when you flip that pillow at night, it's so cold. He would say, he cool as the other side of the pillow. And he would say all these great catchphrases. And so then he brought me into it, right? He brought guys like me, seeing someone that looked like me, having all that swagger and personality on SportsCenter. Yeah. Wow. It was so different. And then when I watched him, you could tell something was up because he got small, right? And when we show this feature every year of him in the octagon, and he's showing MMA moves. And then when he was in his battle with cancer, he trained mixed martial arts and he hit pads. And he was just so in love with this sport. But I think the greatest part of his speech was when he said, "Don't cry for me. I'm living." Yep. Right? That's Dominick. When you're talking about these people,
yeah, it's the same.
I'm living. I'm living. And I think every year when the UFC and the V Foundation do this great event that raises awareness and raises funds for cancer research to try and help people find or fight for their lives, to try to help and provide an opportunity, it's what it's all about, man. And that's why I've been so lucky and blessed to be a part of this fight night on so many different occasions.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. Thomas, I would argue that it is the most important thing that we do around here. I would put, for what Dana White and what he gives back, I would put this at number one. Maybe that's just personal. Can I tell you guys a quick story? When my father was going through it, it was exactly what you described. One day he was just a little weaker, just slowing down. Yeah. It was colon cancer. It blew into his liver. Big problem. The day that he told me he had just bought a new pickup truck, new to where it didn't even have the license plate on, it's got like the tag. So he tells me inside the house, and I walk out. I can't get, just stop right on the tailgate of the truck, and I got my head down, and I'm having my moment, and I can hear the door shut. I can hear that he's come out. I hear his footsteps, and he simply says to me, "You admiring your new truck?"
Really?
Because he was going to pay, and I was going to get the truck. And it was like this weird dark humor, Dominick. 22 years ago, I drive that pickup truck to this day, dude, because you said that moment.
Oh.
And this is the thing. Look how sharp and strong he was in that moment to have the guts to say that to somebody. And what I've noticed is everybody around the cancer victims are falling apart. And the cancer victims aren't victims at all. They're so powerful. They're so smart. They're so present. I think there's so much to learn. Anybody who's got cancer, please sit down for a moment. Have a conversation with them eye to eye, because there's so much to learn from somebody who knows what the end looks like to them, who surrendered to the fact that it's going to be over. And when you talk to them, there's only clarity, there's only presence, there's only love, and there's only something that they want to give you. They're never taking anymore. The whole humanity comes out of somebody in those moments. So I encourage you, please find the time to love somebody in those places and give it to them.
There are so many different ways to battle cancer now. The advances that we have made as a country and around the world in terms of battling cancer, cancer research, it all starts with things like what's happening in Tampa. Things like that. People coming together saying, we want to all work together. We want to be unified in this battle. We know we have a common enemy, right? Because this thing's an enemy, right? We have a common enemy. How do we battle it? How do we overtake it? It's horrible, man, because you can walk the street, and every person, if you say, "Have you ever dealt with this disease?" they will say, "Absolutely."
By the way, to our scientific community, they're making tremendous gains. This isn't just research and awareness. They're going to beat this thing. They are making tremendous gains.
If there was ever a world, if there was ever a world where that this disease was beat and it was done, we are living in a much better world. If there's ever a world where we're getting it under control.
I remember when Stu gave that speech, though.
You remember that?
Well, I remember thinking
it was up there with his dog.
Kryptonite. Yeah, I remember thinking he's going to beat it. Hey, it's not going to get this guy. I remember thinking that, and just to speak to the power of the disease, what a problem it is, why it's so important to fight.
But even Coach Valvano, same thing. went up there and spoke his talk and talked about never give up.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Look at what they all have in common. They've seen the end.
Yeah.
When you see the end, you get power. That's what they have to teach us. There's so much to learn from them, from these people, because
It really is true.
They're going, look, there it is. Okay, and this is which, now I only have something to give you until I reach that. People's entire world shifts, and there's so much to learn from somebody who's got cancer. There just really is. Please sit down and learn from them. They're not some victim. They're not some sob story. They are a teacher if you pay enough attention.
And that is why I love this event. And that is why I love the UFC, using their platform to raise awareness. Don't think that because it doesn't touch you today, it will not affect you in the future.
Facts.
You got to think outside of yourself and your family. And right now, the UFC with its platform, ESPN and its platform, thankful for all that Stuart Scott gave, Coach Jimmy Valvano gave. Try to help people recognize that we're dealing with something so terrible.
Thanks
Guys,
for sharing your story.
continue to build.
Thanks, Franz.
Continue to fight. And let's go beat this thing.